same people, the same things. I want to escape now to another place now, but with you 'cause I don't want to be alone. Tell me if you want to follow me now, to follow me. Take me to your arms and never leave me. Don't leave me, boy. Tell me if you want to follow me now, to follow me. Take me to your arms and never leave me. Don't leave me, boy.
Four French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. They're three wide again. Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across. They're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
Before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy. You know, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower.
Brake. Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, you can look and the first is going off.
I love this. 10.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chaz Draycott Media, and welcome to round number 7 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. We're here at the incredible Circuit des Francorchamps in Belgium, in the Ardennes Forest, and we are really looking forward to a pretty decisive race meeting in this championship. Actually, we're getting into the final parts of the season now, round 7, 8, 9 and 10 of this 10-round championship, and it's certainly going to be an exciting time now to see if any drivers can start to put one hand on the trophy or stop others from doing so. My name is Chaz Draycott. I'm delighted to once again have Ed May in the commentary box with me, and Ed, it's certainly going to be a different one this, because it's a long circuit with a lot of straights, a lot of slipstreaming opportunities. What do you think is going to be key here tonight?
I think just managing the race as it goes on. Obviously, it's a long old time of a full hour, expecting to see 2 pit stops. There are areas where you can, of course, save fuel. The run basically out of La Source all the way up through in towards Les Combes, and then as well actually coming out of Stavelot down towards the chicane at the end of the lap. Plenty of opportunities to get in the slipstream and save some fuel. Of course, if you are able to save a lap's worth of fuel, it runs to around about, well, what, 2 minutes, isn't it? It's a very long lap around here, and that's going to be incredibly helpful for the drivers. But another thing is, of course, going to be the tyres. It's a very hot track temperature, as you can see there on the screen there. It says 41 degrees. It's actually gotten a little bit higher than that. I think it's about 43 last time I checked. So it's going to be a nightmare for some of the drivers that are in the McLarens, such as, well, championship leader Lewis Ward.
Yeah, absolutely. Lewis Ward doing a wonderful job. We'll have a look at the standings, actually, as they are right now. And he is 21 points clear of James Holman, who jumps up into second place after a fantastic trio of victories for James. He doesn't think he's going to be able to make it tonight. I haven't seen him jump into the session as of yet. He's actually travelling back from a couple of days elsewhere, so hopefully we can get him back in, because he is the nearest challenger to Lewis Ward at the moment. But that's not to say that the guys behind are a long way off. Dominic Brennan in third place for Spontex CDM Esports Scourers comes off the back of a couple of podium finishes as well. He'll be pretty pleased with the form that he's had of late. He's had 3 podium finishes this season, 2 in a row at the moment. And then Niles Core is only 4 points back. Then it's Callum Brandt 10 points further back, Guy Edwards, and then Simon Povey. Well, he's not really having the best of seasons, is he, Ed? That round at Donington Park was certainly a bit of a mess from Simon's perspective. I'm afraid it seems like we don't have an Ed.
Hello.
Oh, there he is. Sorry, mate.
Hello. I'm all back. Yeah, sorry. It jumped out for a quick second. Right back. I think I heard what you said. It was about Simon Povey's last race, and I agree. It wasn't really the best of showings from a driver that we've seen to be so consistent. Obviously, he was a bit late into the session. I think missed all of qualifying. He wasn't really able to get a lap on the board, and then charging up through the field, he had some good pace. But then one little moment, sort of towards the tail end, where he was going 3 wide, and then just came across the nose of the car on the left, and sent it all a very uncharacteristic error from Simon. But out here, he's looking very quick at Spa. It's a circuit that he's done very well at in the past. I struggled to keep up with him, let alone try and battle with him in the first season of this championship, which I believe he actually won the round out here in the first season. So he's certainly a driver that has good form around this circuit, and I'll be looking forward to seeing exactly what he'll do out here today, because he's currently 0.3 of a second faster than Lewis Ward in second.
Yeah, it's nice and close further down. And well, I'll say that actually. Once we get to Callum Brandt, Rob Sharp is then about half a second back. Christian Saruta 1 second off the fastest time. But then again, with this being such a longer circuit, the gaps do get amplified between all of the drivers, don't they? You do see quite a difference around here. Philip Hopley's going well at the moment. He's up in 11th position in this Mercedes. The Waterside Gym e-racing driver, with no disrespect, he's usually quite a bit further down the order than this, so he's having a really good run up there at the moment. He's putting a belter of a time. He's faster than Dan McCauley, John Barnes, who got a top 10 last time out at Donington Park, Paul Goffin as well. So really good stuff by Philip Hopley. It's good to have Christian Saruta back as well. He's a driver returning to the championship for this round. We missed him a couple of rounds ago, and I'm expecting big things from Christian. I mean, well, when he did the Road America 400 kilometres as a sort of prelude to this championship, Ed, it was the first time he'd driven the car, and he's been great in it ever since.
Yeah, he's been very good. It's been great to see him back out there. Obviously, like you said, been absent for the past few rounds, but when he's been in the car, he's been showing some really good promise and some very good racecraft as well. I'm very excited to see what this driver can do with a bit more experience underneath his belt. And it's a car that suits this track quite well. I think in season 2, Callum Brandt was sort of starting to emerge as one of the stand-up performers and had a very good race. I wasn't sure if memory serves he was able to actually win the race, but I do remember knowing a very good performance and certainly being able to fight up there with the best of them. So maybe we'll be seeing that level of performance from Christian here tonight. It'll be very, very good to see so many cars that you can see closely matched, all fighting up at the front. Difficult to tell, of course, what the lap times are, if they're representative of their qualifying pace. You can set them on the board in practice with off tracks.
Yeah.
In qualifying, that is not the case whatsoever. And of course, we don't know if drivers have been getting slipstream or not throughout the course of the session. Some of those laps might have been set earlier on, and the track was a little bit cooler, because now it's certainly hotting up. All the while, drivers are just getting that little bit more acquainted with what is a incredibly tricky circuit to master, especially in these GT4 cars that don't have the most amount of downforce to help in these quite high load corners.
Yeah, definitely. On a lot of GT cars around here, you tend to have a sort of medium to low downforce setup because of how high speed it is and how floaty the circuit is. It's a very flowing track here at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. But we're going to see drivers here tonight that don't have the option of that because it's a fixed setup. Oh my god. Without any slipstream as well, that is by the look of it. It's 228.137, goes half a second quicker than just about anybody else. But as I was going to say, the main thing here is that in this championship we run a fixed setup. So everybody is on iRacing's basic sprint fixed setup, as they call it, which is for the, I think it's the Michelin Pilot Challenge thing that they've got them in. Where basically they have the IMSA Sprint Championship in GT4 cars. And whatever setup iRacing provide for us that season, that's what people get. So it's one of those, isn't it, Ed, where if the balance of performance favours a certain car that season, it's not on us. It's whatever iRacing have set, and the drivers have to consider that when they choose their cars. And obviously we do usually race with a season that includes a week 13 in the middle, so to speak. So the cars can change from the beginning to the end of a season.
Yeah, definitely, and I like that. It sort of means that drivers aren't so incentivized to be picking the overpowered car at the start of the season, because that can change as the season progresses. It's what we saw actually in the first season, where it was pretty much Porsche domination for the first round. Then we had week 13, they were reeled in a little bit, and then more and more drivers switched away from the Porsche to, say, the Aston Martin, or even I think a few drivers did switch to the McLaren in season 1, memory serves right. So it's been great to see sort of those differences. Of course, drivers are able to change car throughout the course of the season, but it does carry a 20-point deduction. So it's something for drivers to sort of weigh up and balance. So they're not stuck with the car if, say, week 13 comes around and it's completely undrivable, it's not pleasant. They do have, obviously, that option available to them. It just carries a little bit of a penalty to stop drivers taking the mick and switching car every time throughout the season just to have the fastest car on a particular track.
Nicely said. Can't argue with that. Qualifying just gets underway now. Then the drivers will head out onto the circuit. We'll hopefully get a view of the pit lane as drivers leave. As there they are now, heading down the end of the pit lane and out onto the circuit. That is Martin Kenyon in the Aston Martin, and there is the rest of the field making their way down. It looks like another new livery tonight for the number 14 machine of Oliver Carwadine. Let's have a look at Oliver's car this time round. He's gone for another sort of M Sport livery, is it? Not quite sure whose that is, but it's a very good looking piece of kit anyway. He's had a short history of running very good looking cars in this championship. Speaking of, Dominic Brennan goes past in the Spontex CDM Esports Scourers McLaren. He's got Niles Core just behind him on track. Niles has been very impressive these last few rounds, hasn't he, Ed? Really getting the most out of that BMW M4 GT4. And another thing to think about, actually, just to sort of double up this question and this hand over to you, Ed. This is a short session anyway, but on a much longer circuit, so not as much chance here for drivers to get laps in.
No, not at all. But if there is one driver that I've been really impressed with, it was it's not very impressive by Dominic Brennan, who is ending the barriers through Les Coupes. I was going to talk about this man though, Niels Core. He's really come on leaps and bounds from the start of the season. He's had some great battles, actually, to be fair. Great racecraft, a few little netcode incidents here and there at the opening round. I think it was between himself and Christian Saruta. But other than that, he has been completely spotless in terms of the quality of driving. And then the pace has been getting there time and time again. He's had a few rounds where it's looked like he's been the favourite to win, only for drivers to come through at the very end. I think if he can just get that last little bit of race management nailed down, he's going to have his first race victory before the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one of those where there's a few drivers, isn't there, where they're just on the doorstep of it. I mean, even Guy Edwards, if he just has a bit of luck regarding the guys in front of him, he's definitely going to be up there to take a victory from the guys around him. Christopher Smith as well, his teammate, both of the RD Sim Sport 2 drivers. Even Dan McCauley, we've seen Dan get pole positions sometimes for Apex Racing Academy. I think it was Monza last season where Dan put it on pole, and he and his teammate Lewis Ward are working together once again here. But that's what's been great about this championship, is that every time we look down the field and look all the way through the order, there's always people that could win races, isn't there, Ed? It's just the quality of the field and the amount of drivers that could be inside that top 10 is just awesome.
Yeah, the sort of top 10 has been getting stronger and stronger every single season we've had of this SRM GT4 Challenge. And, of course, even the newcomers that arrive in the championship, while they might not be able to challenge right away, the experience in racecraft that they can develop over the course of just one single season, even after a few race meetings, you see it, don't you, Chaz? Obviously, just the drivers get that confidence and they find that pace. They can learn from the cars and the drivers around them. And race on race, the championships just keeps getting better and better. But I think the drivers are now getting towards the end of their outlaps, and we're going to start to see the drivers properly attacking the circuit in anger. And I think one of the first out there is going to be Simon Povey on a fast lap.
Yeah, Simon Povey's going to be pushing from the very get-go. And really, he's just doing it again without slipstream. He was telling me earlier that he tries to do his laps without slipstream, so he's not got the sort of added pressure of sitting with a teammate. He said he used to do it in leagues before and in officials, and people didn't like it, so he just tends to just go about it on his own. And it's an interesting bit of psychology, really, because you've not got a car in front of you that you have to worry about, and you've not got a car behind you that you have to worry about. You just do your own thing. I went and did a bit of karting yesterday evening, and I was thinking the same thing there, because I know at the end of the day, when you just have these sort of arrive and drive sessions for 15 minutes, you're only going to see the lap times at the end. Sure, you can overtake your mates and have a bit of a laugh and a crash, but it's just about lap times, and this is that sort of mentality right now for Simon. He knows what people are going to see at the end of this. He doesn't need to worry about the other cars around him. He's just going to crack on.
And I think that's what makes him such a good driver, is that he just gets his head down and nails the lap times when they count. Johnny Ely with a purple middle sector, that's going to be very interesting to see how that develops. Simon Povey, while we've been buttering up and talking about his progression out on the circuit and how he pushes so brilliantly, he's not been improving on his previous best. Through the second or the third sector. So it's not looking like the cleanest of lap times from Simon, but obviously it's more just about getting the banker lap on board than anything else, and just getting that time, because like you say, it's a very short session on a long lap, and if you do mess up at one point or another, then it's basically writing off, well, 2.5 minutes worth of track time.
Yeah, it really is. You have to be so hot on it. Simon crosses the line to put his first lap on the board. Paul Goffin is going to join him as well, although no actual valid time, for Simon. Johnny Elia goes fastest. He actually did purple sector 2 as well earlier on.
Callum Brandt's on a lap.
Yeah, Callum Brandt is absolutely flying, isn't he, as he just comes out of the bus stop now in the Mercedes. Niles Corr's done a purple sector as well. Rob Sutherland in there in the middle of them all. Let's see what the times are as they come through on the left-hand side. Brandt does a 2:29.350. Fletcher does a 2:31.4. 2:30.5 for John Barnes. John Roberts, a 2:32.6. But that's the thing. I mean, you look at John Roberts' time, and yeah, it's 3.2 seconds off. But on any other circuit, that'd only be about, what, 1.5? It's not that far off. It's just that everything gets amplified here. But Callum Brandt fastest at the moment, ahead of Johnny Elia. The Mercedes looking nice and strong in this early stage of the session. Let's see where the Apex Racing Academy guys are. Lewis Ward is now ahead of Dan McCauley as they come round to the final parts of the circuit. And it seems like, I think Dan has maybe been the one to give some slipstream here, then dive out the way. He was, actually no, he's only been a few tenths slower in each sector, so I don't think he's dived out the way at all. Guy Edwards is going to be next up to set a time with his teammate Christopher Smith. Let's see where those two go. Guy goes second. Chris does not do a valid time. I've had drivers saying tonight, actually, Ed, that they expect a lot of off-tracks and incident points tonight. It seems like that's very, very true, isn't it? That this place is not one to let you get away with it.
Going to be a real shake-up to the order in qualifying if drivers aren't able to get laps on the board. It'll make it very interesting as Lewis Ward goes to the top of timing sheets ahead of CDM Esports driver Dominic Brennan. I was having a look actually at the last couple of times we were at Spa, and Simon Povey did win both in Season 1 and in Season 2. So could he make it, I think, the first driver to win 3 races at the same circuit?
Yeah, that would actually, yeah, that's something we need to look at. We do look at how many drivers or how many circuits a driver has won at, or how many times a driver has won at a certain circuit. Certainly another statistic we need to keep a track of in this championship, because we do often visit a lot of the same ones season after season. I think that's been another interesting element that we haven't really uncovered yet in this championship, is that some of the new blood that comes into the series and gets quicker and quicker, they've not had a season where they've already raced at this track in these cars. You know, some of them are doing it for the first time, while other drivers have done the exact same race for 3 seasons now. So it's very, very interesting to see just how it all works out, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting to see those new drivers at those new circuits, because it is a bit of a great equaliser, isn't it? We've seen some of the new blood come through and win the races because of it. I think James Holman, I think the last 3 races he won, weren't they all tracks that we haven't raced at before? I think it was Jerez, Manicourt and Donington. And those were all circuits that we hadn't seen drivers race at before.
A bit of a scary moment there, actually, as Guy Edwards jumps out of the way of his teammate. Overdoes it slightly, but still I think that was maybe a little bit pre-choreographed, let's say. The times continue to come in, and Simon Povey has gone fastest with a 2:28.38, nearly 6 tenths quicker than anybody else. And it's then Ward and Brennan, so now it's 3 McLarens at the top. We're going to stay with Christopher Smith, though, just to see how his BMW fares. Niles Core has gone 1.2 seconds off in 7th place. Can he be the fastest BMW right now? Christopher Smith, across the final corner he goes. Uses all the curb on the right-hand side. Love a bit of that. And Carwadine's gone 12th in the other BMW. And Christopher Smith goes 5th fastest. So a pretty solid time that by Chris. Splits the Mercedes of Callum Brandt and Guy Edwards. And the session continues on. There's still a couple of drivers that haven't put times in yet. One of which is this man, Dan McCauley.
Yeah, he should be able to put time on the board this time by, though, as he breaks the beam. Hopefully aiming for a top 5. Just outside in 6th place. So he's definitely within the picture. Obviously, qualifying isn't as important here at Spa with the slipstream, allowing drivers plenty of opportunities to overtake in towards corners such as Lecoum and also in towards the final bus stop chicane. But Simon Povey's just looking incredibly strong and dominant out there. This is a circuit that he's got an almost stranglehold on in terms of that top spot. Won it in Season 1, won it in Season 2, and is certainly with that last lap time of nearly 6 tenths per second quicker than 2nd place. It's going to be tricky for drivers to try and dethrone him from being king of Spa.
Yeah, I don't think he's on for much more on this lap at the moment. Just one improvement in the first sector. The rest of the lap hasn't been as hot as the rest of it. But he's certainly looking fired up, and he's going to come in actually and get some fresh rubber on the car. Here's another McLaren, John Barnes, number 21, currently in 12th position. He was really happy with his top 10 result actually at Donington Park, wasn't he, Ed? It was certainly a very pleasant and heartwarming result to see. It was nice to speak to John as well for the first time in this championship.
Yeah, he was away for a couple of rounds beforehand as well, wasn't it? So good to see him back in the championship and scoring well. McLaren is certainly a car that needs a bit of adjustment. He's going very well in it. As he makes his way, as Callum Brandt does improve up into 3rd place. That's something to watch for with the Mercedes. Let's have a look. John Barnes just outside the top 10 this time, but not far away from Johnny Ely. Actually, I'll say that now there's been further improvements as Christian Saruta goes up into 6th place. So he finally gets time up on the board, and it's good enough for 6th place. It's looking very congested around about that 5th, 6th and 7th sort of position zone though. And I mean, look at that. It's only a few thousandths that separate 5th from 6th. So it's incredibly close there with the Mercedes in between 2 BMWs.
Yeah, very close.
In between a BMW and a Porsche as Rob Sharp goes up in 7th. It's all changing all the time.
Yeah, Rob doing his usual there. Really flying the flag for the Porsches again. Love the look of this car, the Orris Racing Machine. Such a beautiful livery. It really does pop, doesn't it, on that machine. The gloss yellow against the brushed aluminium, as Dominic Brennan now goes 2nd fastest for Spontex CDME Sports Scourers. Makes it a front row lockout for the team. That's very, very important when it comes to the Teams Championship, because let's not forget, it's these guys, Apex Racing Academy and RD Simsport, that are fighting for the honours at the top of the standings there. There's only 14 points between the teams. RD Simsport 2 are becoming a part of that as well, actually, Ed, because they're only, I think, something like 50 points off the top. So even for them, it's all very close, isn't it?
And there's still plenty of time to go in the season. Let's not forget, we've got obviously this being the 7th round, but then we've got the 8th, 9th and 10th. There's still at this point 4 rounds remaining in the championship for drivers to get those points on the board. So it's all to play for, and it could still obviously change in the teams championship, because Lewis Ward has been, I think, the only driver, not to curse him, I'm going to be gripping a hold of my wooden desk to not, he's been the only driver that's not had a bad race. And I think that's what integral to his championship charge. So again, he knows that Simon doesn't really have a lot to lose, just does need to be very cautious of the fact that Dominic Brennan is, only about 24 points shy of him. So that's something to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, definitely. You need to always be keeping your eyes peeled in a championship like this, because people can just come out of the woodwork out of nowhere, can't they, and just show us a result. It's very interesting. This is Kim Such for Orris Racing Green. He's the only driver not to have set a time so far, unfortunately. Ben Gregory is also in the session, but is not out on the circuit. Kim is just trying to get that first clean lap in. But again, it's not a circuit that's forgiving for off-tracks, as we call them, or incident points, as Niles Core goes up into 5th and dethrones Christopher Smith as the highest-placed BMW in the field. Christian Saruta now splits the pair of them as well by a mere 16 thousandths or 17 thousandths of a second. Well, this is a really nice close session, this. I'm enjoying this one so far. It's going to be an exciting race because of how long a lap is here. There's not as many opportunities for the drivers to make an overtake in somewhere where they could be eyeing it up.
Yeah, Simon Povey's just started his final lap. Niels Core and Christian Saruta are also on their final lap times, because there's not enough time in the session to go around any further times, as we do have only 1 minute and 20 seconds to go in this qualifying session. It's very close, isn't it? All the way down from 2nd towards sort of 5th. Those positions can certainly change around, but it's going to take a monumental effort to go quicker than Simon Povey right now. Dominic Brennan doesn't seem to be able to improve his lap time in 2nd place. Not at all the lap time he was hoping for, so we'll need to keep his eyes behind him and hope that Lewis Ward can't better him to try and break up that, like you say, very impressive Spontex CDM Esports front row lockout.
Yeah, doing a good job at the moment, aren't they, the Scourers? Dominic Brennan still, though, nearly half a second off Simon Povey. You wonder whether Simon could win the race on pace alone, because we've seen drivers have to do that before. I mean, look at last round. Lewis Ward was so fast and he flew away at the front of the field. James Holman did rein him in a little bit, but down to the strategy, James was just able to make it work in that Porsche. But with no disrespect to Rob Sharp, seeing as there's not a Porsche in that sort of top 5 at the moment that could really be a definite shout for a race win, I think it's going to be intriguing to see whether the BMW can be the one to spring up a surprise here against the McLarens or the Mercedes. The overall theme has been that the McLaren is the fastest car on a single lap, but it shreds its tyres and is a lot more twitchy and takes a lot more management over the course of a race. Lewis Ward's just done a purple final sector and goes second. He splits the McLarens right at the death. I say that as if he's not in a McLaren himself, but splits Simon Povey and Dominic Brennan. That could be important in terms of who's got the advantage going into this race, Ed. That's a real big moment.
Did Dominic Brennan cross, not locked, or did Lewis Ward cross the line in time to have a further attempt at another lap time? I'm not sure if he did, as we have Niels Core crossing the line, no improvements here. Simon Povey, look at that, using all of the circuit, coming through Blanchimont. And now, look at this, he's really going to be attacking this final chicane. He's improved in the 1st, 2nd and 4th sectors. He means business to Simon. And while that gap came down with that lap by Lewis Ward, I've got a feeling it's going to grow just that little bit more, because powering out of the chicane, taking tight to the line, it looked very good. And it is very good. It's a 2 minute 28.212. Again, that gap increases to half a second between 1st and 2nd.
That is unbelievable, that is, by Simon Povey. The fact that he's gone and done that without slipstream as well, continually improving. Christopher Smith just improved as well, surely on his lap time. No. Callum Brandt improves but does not gain a position. Dominic Brennan is going to be one of the last ones to put a new time on the board here, and I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to go for second, although then again he's got 3 personal bests. He's only about 10th off Lewis Ward. Can he get back on the front row? No, it's a 2:28.864, and he needed a 2:28.75 or less. So it's going to be Simon Povey who takes the point for pole position, but it's not going to be a front row lockout for Spontex CDM Esports Scourers.
It was all in that final sector. Lewis, what about the purple sector 5? Dominic Brennan was lost about a couple of tenths there, so I think that was probably the difference maker when you look at the overall lap time. There's about a tenth of a second between the pair of them at the end there, so I think it was just all the way down. You can spend, well, nearly 2.5 minutes going around the circuit, but it can all go away right at the very end just from one small mistake.
That's it. That one tiny mistake can make all the difference in cars like this as well. They don't always completely behave themselves for you, but it's really interesting to see how these drivers can wrangle them around a lap and who can make the most of them. You see a blurry Spa-Francorchamps before you, and we'll have a look down the pit lane, shall we, at the cars that are currently sat there at the moment. They will all disappear bit by bit, and then the session will tick over for us now as qualifying has finished. The only thing here at Spa is the fact that because it is such a long lap, the session ticks over for a while afterwards before then going into the race, but we will have a big grid of cars here, 27 machines. Unfortunately, we do not have Jakub Szymanski joining us for the rest of the season, nor do we have Tom Weston, both of them struggling with out-of-sim work commitments.
Chaz, I've just noticed something.
Sorry?
James Coleman has made it into the session just at the very end.
Oh,
there.
he has,
He's been
yeah.
able to just hop in. He hasn't been able to set qualifying time, but hopefully he's been able to put some practice in during the week to get up to speed here. It's going to be great to see him now charge up through the field. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make it 4 wins on the bounce from the very back, but here at Spa, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a lot of amazing, exciting races in this championship that have thrown up surprise results for us, and we know that Spa has definitely got the ingredients to throw up another one as well. More cars making their way into the pits, but they will now all disappear. That was Oliver Cardine just completing his lap, and I think based on that now being finished off, the session will tick over, and Ed and I will prepare ourselves for another hour-long encounter here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. A quick word as well to say thank you to the championship sponsors who you'll see cycling through in the top right of your screen. That is if I actually show the flip-in logos. Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Blinds to Go, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Mydas Simulations. We love you all and are very grateful to have you for your support for this great championship and lovely community that we have here at SRM. Simon Povey starts on pole position, then with Lewis Ward alongside him. Then we have Dominic Brennan and Callum Brandt making up row 2. Niles Core is in 5th place with Christian Saruta alongside him on the 3rd row. Christopher Smith and Rob Sharp make up row 4. We then have Guy Edwards and Dan McCauley rounding out the top 10, ahead of Johnny Elia and John Barnes. Then it's Oliver Carwadine and Paul Goffin on the 7th row, Mark Johnson and Rob Sutherland in 15th and 16th, Philip Hopley 17th with John Roberts alongside him. Then it's Drew Fletcher and Heinz Mayer rounding out the top 20. Andrew Shepherd is 21st. He splits the two Mayers as Ralph starts in 22nd. Then we have Martin Kenyon 23rd and Kim Such 24th. Andy Marston will line up 25th ahead of James Holman, and Ben Gregory, I do not believe, will take the start of the race. So they're all going to line up now, Ed, just near the final sector of the circuit, just here. They don't have to do the full lap here, and to be fair, that makes quite the mental difference to a driver, doesn't it? You don't have to line up for a long time with a massive lap ahead of you.
Yeah, it's great, obviously, for drivers just to be able to see around them, and obviously, yeah, like it's a nice short run to the basically start and then towards La Source. But it's something to think about, of course, is for the drivers a bit further back that weren't able to get those lap times that they were hoping for, is to get through this opening lap nice and cleanly, because usually the field does stay pretty close together here at Spa, and the slipstream can mean that sometimes we have trains all the way from first down to, say, 21st in these races for a long time. So there's still plenty of scope for drivers to get up into the mix should their pace be quick enough. But something to obviously worry about as well is just keeping it in the track and not straying over the inside limit.
Yeah, very true. You've just got to play the game here and keep it nice and tidy here at Spa. It's such a demanding circuit. You almost feel a weird sort of pressure racing at Spa-Francorchamps. It's such a unique circuit in a weird way, because it's not got the sort of length of like the Nürburgring or Le Mans, but it's still up there, held in similar regard to circuits like that because of the sort of events that it puts on and the colossal nature of the place. It's a beautiful
prestige
location. Yes, prestige, that's absolutely it. So
it's a bit weird as well, isn't it? It's so open, but it's also boxed in with the scenery around you, so it can cause drivers' heads to go a little bit. But Here we go, Chaz. Start the races here, and they need to be level-headed to get this nice and done cleanly.
They absolutely do. In round 7, just like that of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge gets underway, and it's Simon Povey who's got a demon start from the right-hand side of the grid. He really went for it out at the bus stop, made that work to his advantage, and his teammate Dominic Brennan goes down the inside of Lewis Ward. Callum Brandt's in there as well, Niles Core, Christian Saruta, as they try and sneak their way around La Source. Let's see what this is like in the middle of the field. Oliver Carwadine and Rob Sutherland side by side as well. Martin Kenyon there just towards the back of the pack. He's got Andrew Shepherd in front of him. Looks like everyone's kept it tidy. James Holman's going to have to wait and pick his chances and pick his fights. But here we go, Ed, up over Blanchimont. Sorry, not Blanchimont. Rouge and Radion for the first time. Oh no, Rob Sharp!
Oh dear, and that's going to be a huge moment if he spins
Oh,
across the
no.
circuit, and he does just clip. Oh no, and so many cars trying to take evasive action. He's just trying to trail away. Thankfully, a lot of the cars did slow down to avoid that, but there's yet more chaos down on the Kemmel Straight. That's one of the Sim Racing Magazine cars. Obviously, that's Paul Goffin stricken. So we've had some big casualties there. Oliver Carwadine, Paul Goffin, John Barnes, and the big one, Rob Sharp, from high up on the grid with massive damage. John Roberts as well stricken amongst all of that with suspension damage. He's going to be taking a trip to the pit lane. So just one little moment, the cars so close together. How many times have we seen nasty incidents like that at the top of that hill?
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible place, really. When one of you goes off, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So it was Rob Sharp having the initial moment. He had a spin. And then the first car that hit him after that was John Barnes, I think. And then once those two had made contact, there was nothing John could do here, look. Nowhere he could go. That was a colossal hit. Then Carwadine went over to the left, and then he hits Rob Sharp. What on earth happened to Paul Goffin, though? Because I think, oh my goodness me, he was already having a massive accident. Could hear him go down the gears there with the loudest flappy paddles on earth. Oh, now did Goffin have an accident avoiding in the other direction? Because there's Rob, hits John Barnes. Does he hit the grass? Ah, he does. Oh my goodness me, and then it just grips up and puts him in the wall. He is so... Oh, that's where John Roberts got the damage.
No.
That's where John Roberts got the damage, and I think the car was ill from that point, as it flipping would be. Jesus, look at the state of it. That front right is absolutely ruined. And then I think he's just going to have a bit of a moment here. Tiny touch from Mark Johnson, and there the car doesn't want to behave.
Yeah, I think he just realises it's not going to turn through that corner. But that's a nightmare for boosted, well, both of their drivers. Ron is the only John Squadron. Well, we're not wanting to see any more of that, unfortunately. And hopefully there's scope for them to come back into this race. Simon Povey is blowing off into the distance with assistance from Dominic Brennan in behind, making it Spontex CDM Esports 1-2 out in front of Lewis Ward for Open Racing Academy. And interestingly, actually, in the Teams Championship, while Lewis Ward is up into third, Dan McCauley's only in ninth. He's been able to gain a position from the start of the race on account of all the spinning in front. I think it's from the Rick and Rob Sharp that was, I think, qualified ahead. So that's where that position came from for Dan. But as it stands, it's going to be a big chunk taken out of the Teams Championship lead by Spontex CDM Esports at the moment.
Yeah, it's certainly a lovely run at the moment for these McLarens at the front. Niles Core, the next car up with Callum Brandt, Christian Saruta, Christopher Smith, Guy Edwards behind. Rob Sutherland has gained 5 spots from the start of the race. He's having a good run. Drew Fletcher's gained 6. Martin Kenyon has gained 9. Martin Kenyon's a demon at these starts. We always see him going well at the start of races, and he's certainly navigated his way through that one beautifully. James Holman is unsurprisingly the biggest mover in the field at the moment. He's just 2 cars back in the 16th spot in the field, and then Kim Such behind him has gained 7 places as well. So some of the guys really benefiting from the incident at the start of the race. It's not the best way to benefit from the race, of course, is to just get the freebies, but still, these guys won't mind that. You've got to finish. What's the phrase? To finish first you have to finish.
Yeah, it's a lovely move we just saw as well by James Holman going up the inside of Andrew Shepherd. Little dart to the inside, and Andrew, I think, saw it coming, gave him the space. Thought it wasn't really wise fighting with the driver that's already won the past 3 races at this early stage, and hopefully that might help him, tag along and get the slipstream and look after this race just as much. Bit of a gap, though, sadly, for James Holman and his charge up through the field, because when he gets to, say, about 12th place, then there's going to be a 6-second gap up to 11th that he needs to try and deal with. Sadly, he won't have an easy run up to the front of the field, but regardless, he's going to be able to get some good points on the board, and crucially for the Teams Championship, he's got his teammate Callum Brandt currently up in 5th place. Hopefully Nils Course is going to keep in the fight, and he is. You can see the gap all the way up at the front. Nice and close there.
Yeah, indeed. I was just keeping an eye on Andrew Shepherd there because he caught right back up with James Holman. I think James potentially made a mistake somewhere near the middle of that lap. But here is the train of cars near the front of the field then. Christopher Smith in the BMW just ahead of Guy Edwards. Dan McCauley 2 seconds off these guys with Johnny Elia just in tow. I think it's just about in the tow at about 2 seconds around here. But then again, that might be pushing it. These cars don't slipstream massively behind each other. So I think there's potential that these guys have already missed the bus on that one. Look how close they get to the wall. They're really opening up Eau Rouge. And then up to Radion. Very different corner nowadays compared to how it is in the sim here. Can't remember when this scan of Spa was from, actually. I think it was like 2011, 2010, something like that.
Very old, isn't it?
Yeah. Makes me feel old anyway.
Yeah, I think they've done a few changes to it over the years, but like I say, the initial scan is very old, so the tarmac isn't as smooth as it presumably is now. Having a look though, actually, just to some of the times coming through in the gaps that are beginning to slowly but surely emerge. Simon Povey is still lapping quicker than Dominic Brennan, and maybe over the course of the race that could become something that we'll see Simon streak off into the distance. Another thing that I was just about to mention as well is about the slipstream range. You said it was around about 2 seconds. A lot of it does also depend on the car that's in front, because these McLarens, they sort of quite shape, what's the word? Sort of aerodynamically shaped to not punch a massive hole through the air like the McLarens or the BMWs do.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be gaining as much of an advantage in behind a McLaren in comparison to, say, in behind a BMW, which I think is part of the reason why a lot of the drivers have been saying McLaren has a lot of straight line speed. It's more down to the fact that it doesn't really give you a lot of room to catch up in the slipstream on the account of its shape more than anything else. So you don't reel it in as fast as, say, you would in behind a Mercedes, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of elements like that in having all of these different cars. That, I don't know, you have to maybe not think about too much over the course of a race. You have to just sort of focus on what you're doing yourself rather than whether the other car's better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't really get the words together to explain that, but 2x2 through, side by side through Blanchimont. Oh, goodness me. Mark Johnson, brave there.
Yeah, both
brave.
of them incredibly close. You could barely see daylight between the pair of them as they were going side by side. It was a scary moment, but thankfully no contact made. Yeah, side through Blanchimont, though. That took some bravery by Mark Johnson to get that move pulled off. As again, the charge up through the field continues going strongly for James Holman, now up 12 into 14th place. And as he gets ahead of Drew Fletcher before getting involved in this little battle. It's now a gap of 10 seconds between Mark Johnson and Johnny Elia. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done if he's to get up into this next fight. Johnny Elia and Michael are sort of in their own little fight as well, aren't they, for that 9th place. And just dropped a little bit away from Guy Edwards' rear end. Out in front though, Simon Povey continues to build his lead, even though Dominic Brennan is the slipstream, trying to stick with him.
Yeah, that's the thing. You need to be able to follow well around somewhere like Spa, because with the long sweeping corners here, the slight bit of aero wash you can get in GT4 cars can really put you off, and it can really affect the machines. I'm wondering what Niles Corr can do here, Ed, because he's starting to open up a little bit of a gap over Callum Brandt and sit with the guys in front. I'm not sure whether that BMW's got the same characteristics to stick with the McLaren around here. It's a bit of a stalemate at the front of the order at the minute, so it's quite intriguing to see how they all adapt to whether they can stick with the car in front or make moves to overtake them and then carry on going forward from there.
I think it's going to be very difficult for Niels Corr, because an area where you need to be really close to the cars ahead to properly make moves, it's going to be coming through sort of that final chicane. But there's one thing that McLaren has got down really nicely, and it's basically a really good final sector for, is, well, not a really good sector, the really good sector for the McLarens is the final one. So it's going to be so difficult for the BMWs to stay close and get the slipstream. So it's going to be, like you say, I can't see any way for Niels Corr to properly get involved in this battle, but If maybe there's a mistake from the cars ahead, they drop back close enough to him. If there's an opportunity, he has to seize it. He can't afford to lift and coast and sit behind them, because if the moves are there to be taken, he has to go all for them.
Yeah, you have to just take the opportunities, don't you? You have to send it at a time like this, because like I said a minute ago, it's a bit of a stalemate at this part of the race. I've got White Van Gaming in the YouTube chat who was just saying that after only a couple of laps, James Holman was the lead Porsche. Yes, technically very true. A real shame for what happened to Rob Sharp, though, flying the flag for the Porsches. Jakob Schmansky in the chat, good to see you. Fausto Pinto, Martin Kenyon and Thomas F as well. Fausto saying good evening. Sorry, Chaz, can't run today. Very sick with a nasty cold. Really hope you're all right, Fausto. Look forward to seeing you on the circuit again very soon, my friend. Good God, that's the loudest curve in existence there as Johnny Healy
I don't know if they would hear you after that one.
Oh my God. We actually saw him do that a lap or so ago as well, and I didn't think to then come off it. Look who's together again, Ed. Ralph Mayer and Heinz Mayer right together on circuit once more. They've both overtaken Kim Such as well in the last few laps to get there. I don't know about you, but in terms of, just to sort of give full disclosure to everybody, we get something called an event viewer on our timing software, which is a little list of all little events that happen, whether a car goes off the track or outside of track limits for more than a second, or maybe touches a bit of the dirt or a bit of the grass, for example. When people make overtakes and so on, that's how we click back on them and then get a replay like this. If we double click on it, it says Simon Povey went off track. It was literally 1.0 something seconds apparently, and that counts as being off track. There's a lot of them coming up today, but it doesn't necessarily always mean that they're getting off tracks, does it, Ed? So maybe a little bit of a red herring there to potential track limits, because they get a penalty at 20 incident points.
I've already got, I mean, you can see we've got like loads of different numbers and stuff flashing up at us all the time on our monitors because of our live timing software. Mine on the very far right, it's got a little thing that says OT, which stands for off tracks. Mine is currently sitting at 20 for Simon Povey, and at 20 I believe you get a drive-through penalty. So I don't think he's reached that at all, because I think we've had this discussion before.
Yes.
At Spa, where it sort of rolls off of the older track limits, but they reworked them I think a couple years ago, if memory serves correctly. So
well,
I don't think any of the drivers are anywhere near the threshold at this early stage, and if they are, oh my word, what have they been doing?
Oof, that was a good sound and a good shot. Interesting to hear that yours are different to mine, because I have Guy Edwards on 22 and Simon Povey on 15 at the moment. And I was looking at Niall's score because he was on. I have no idea
what that number even means then.
It should be off tracks, but maybe it's client side, and maybe there's a difference in terms of what data gets collected. I'm not sure. We'll have to figure that out at a further time. But I've got Lewis Ward on 23 at the moment, the most in the field, now 24 after that little escapade. But he's definitely not got 24 incident points, because he would have been in the pits with a drive-through penalty by now, as I fear Guy Edwards and Christopher Smith could hold each other up here if they don't work together. The little blip of the brakes there by Guy says, no, I'm going to sit behind you. You go and sit with Saruta. Try and chase him down. Over the Radion they go. Look at the run down the back straight here, up the Kemmel Straight actually. I say down the Kemmel Straight, but it's a big uphill, isn't it, Ed? No one remembers or realises quite how steep this place is.
Yeah, and then when you get basically to crest of the hill, sort of here, then it's all downhill, isn't it? Basically, all the way around the lap time. Just getting assisted by gravity, which makes it, of course, so much more faster and trickier. As you see Andrew Shepherd, another Porsche, having a moment through Radion.
Yeah, big moment that for Andrew Shepherd. I love how the rear wing only came off when he had that tiny clip of the barriers. Oh, that's a massive hit. Wow, he's lucky not to have hit anybody there. Who was that behind him? Was it Heinz Mayer that was in the Orris Racing green car? Let's have a look at it from his point of view. He has a moment of his own, look. Wow. He backs out of it and flipping heck. He sees literally what could have been the worst case scenario if he'd have done it any worse than that. That was definitely an Orris Racing brown moment, never mind green. But Andrew Shepherd now, unfortunately, sat in the pits, and Ralph Mayer is trying to break the curse and get ahead of Martin Kenyon, so the two Mayers aren't together on the circuit.
Yeah, one thing though, when you see the Mayers together, and then you see sort of a bit further back, I always think that Kim Such is one of the Mayers, because you see the Orris Racing green, and you think that they should be together, which is what annoys me. I don't know why Orris Racing, they didn't put the two Mayers together in the same team. Maybe it probably would have made it harder for us to tell them apart, to be honest, so maybe it's for the best.
Very, very true. It would have driven us absolutely mental, I think,
would
over the
have
course
done
of the
us.
season.
For a little bit, actually, Chaz, I'm glad you switched to Simon, because for a moment there, the gap did emerge to just above a second. So Bob's trying to reel him in, but Simon is doing his best to stretch his legs. And again, the gap just emerging over a second, streak away. And I think Lewis Ward might be getting a little bit impatient.
Yeah, maybe so. It's easy to do in this situation, but the thing is, Lewis doesn't have to push here. I mean, it sounds really boring of me to be like, oh, don't bother, Lewis. Just sit there and you've got the championship points. But this is what we love about Lewis and some of the drivers at the very sharp end of this field. They will not settle for third place just because it's good for the championship. He knows he's got the pace to be in the lead of this race, so he's going to push and he's going to go for it. He's not going to hang back and play games here with Dominic Brennan. He's just going to fight. And he's going to go all the way down here. He is hanging back a little bit, but he's just staying close enough to put the pressure on, isn't he? He's filling the mirrors and he's still playing the mind games here. He's just behind, I think, Christopher Smith and Christian Saruta have just swapped places. And now Saruta is the Pilifi Racing meat in the sandwich with the RD Sim Sport 2 bread. Not quite sure that it's good for eating with that blue mould all over it. But, well, to be honest, it's not a great filling either, actually, why Christian Saruta's car is called Pilifi Racing. But it's a long story that comes from the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Championship that Peter Mackay and I will know about and maybe explain one day. Dominic Brennan, though, he's getting a bigger train of cars behind him now. Is he working with Simon here? He's not backing him up on purpose, but he's doing Simon a favour in a way, isn't he, by not quite being with him and dragging these guys up to him.
I think, though, that I don't think it's any sort of team game. I think Simon is just that quick. We saw in qualifying, half a second faster. It's going to be difficult to keep up with him, with, of course, the lack of aerodynamic performance he'll be suffering in his wake. And then the further back you get, the less slipstream you get down the straights. So I fear that this gap may only start to grow more and more. And to break the toe at a circuit like this, it just shows that when he's having his day, Simon is completely unbeatable. And I think this could be one of those days for Simon.
Yeah, I think it's just out-and-out pace, isn't it? It's one of those circuits. I think we discussed it. I can't remember where it was that you and I discussed it, actually, but it's one of the circuits where everybody on the service will have done a lot of laps around here. You know, everybody's got experience in this place. Usually it levels the playing field a bit more.
Park,
yeah,
I think.
yeah. But
because of so many of the UK drivers that we have here, obviously with experience, even though it wasn't a track that they would have driven too much in this machinery because we haven't been there before.
Yeah, that's very true. I suppose it's one of those things where it depends on where you're from, whether you would have raced the circuit or not, but Spa, I guess, is one of the more international ones that everyone's done a Spa 24-hour or a Spa endurance race at some point, surely, in GT cars, in some of the official series as well here on iRacing. So the fact that it levels the playing field like that can sometimes be interesting. It sometimes shows the talent of the drivers, as that was a great send by Martin Kenyon. I'm not even sure it was intentional. Drew Fletcher sends it back up the inside, and now they're going to go 3 wide. The 990 machine in there as well. Braking, that's Ralph Mayer. Tries to find a way through in the sprightly little Porsche. They nearly go 3 wide down towards La Source. I'm glad we caught this. This is a fantastic battle. Drew moves across into the braking zone, cuts across the front of Martin Kenyon. That was decisive stuff by Drew. Lovely job. Really lovely job, that. Great work.
Almost lost it into the chicane, but then fought back brilliantly on the exit and darting to the inside. Martin Kenyon just really had no reply. It was so decisive by Drew. That's what we love to see when drivers are very clear with their intentions and they will stick brilliantly. Up ahead though, Lewis Ward's still sticking Dominic Brennan, and I worry that his insistence on sitting behind and saving fuel, if he isn't able to save the extra lap and have that clear air running to properly push and try and take down that deficit to Simon, there's going to be there's not going to be a lot of chance for him to get back into the race. And another thing, actually, I've just realised, Simon, what does Simon love to do? Ooh, not this, as we see Kim Such have a moment. Again, Porsche's really struggling through Radeon. Again, that's the third car we've seen have a moment, and it's the third Porsche we've seen have it there. No other cars have been seemingly struggling there, so that's something maybe to look at. Maybe the short wheelbase not really helping over the bumps and the unsettledness of the car there. What I was going to say though is, what do we see Simon Povey do quite often in these opening sort of first stints?
Complain.
He takes a short, complain, but also does a short stop at the start of the race compared to those around him to give himself that gap away from the slipstream. If he could maybe do, say, a splash and dash early on, have the clear track running, no one's going to be able to keep up with him.
Yeah, very, very true, actually. Very, very true. He just needs to
I have
open it up.
flashbacks to season 1. That's how he beat me.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, that's it. This is why we love having you in the commentary box, Ed, because you've got the first-hand experience of racing against some of these guys, and in this championship, so you know the format, you know how the cars behave. You know, you're not an idiot like me that can't drive, so never gets the experience or the hands-on experience anyway. But still.
Sorry, Chaz. One year we'll do a 24 together, and it'll be great.
I was hoping to do the Spa 24 this year, you know, as a Spontex thing. I keep saying to some of the guys that we'll have a Spontex CDM Esports endurance team and we'll do like a special event and have a couple of cars out there, but it just never happens. And we'll figure it out at some point of the year, I imagine, and we'll
have
eventually
been tempted to race with Simon in one of these special events before, but I'm married to the booth now. It's difficult to peel me out of it.
That's absolutely it. It's a lot more fun to watch everybody else's race rather than worry about and ruin my own. So.
Oh yeah, it's too stressful.
This battle carries on.
This is stressful enough. Look at it.
It's great battling though, isn't it? We've got Philip Hopley coming into the pit lane for his first pit stop of the race. While these guys continue to fight, Martin Kenyon weaving down the hill to break the slipstream. I think Drew Fletcher just clipped the wall a little bit there with the big hips of that McLaren. We're in the narrow little Porsche here of Heinz Mayer. And again, they're just being so careful up over Radion, aren't they, in these little things, because they're so easy to spin around. The short wheelbase they've got, that's Ralph Mayer on the right-hand side there. And up the Kemmel straight they go. The other two still in front, weaving around. Drew Fletcher tries to fill his mirrors at least. He's just saying, look, Martin, come on, you're moving around a lot here, son. I can do it too. Just a bit of mental warfare going on between these two right now. I love that.
It's 3 Aston Martins all in a row, obviously a bit further apart, but it's Mark Johnson, who's the fastest Aston out on the track, ahead of Rob Sutherland, and then Martin Kenyon. All of them, though, in the points, which is good to see.
Very true. Very true. Just having a look at some of these off tracks, because it seems like some of these guys are just getting them as they go around Stavelot and down towards Blanchimont, and that seems to be the key point. Every lap or so there's just loads of text that comes up on my screen that says so-and-so's gone off, so-and-so's gone off. I keep getting worried about it. That was definitely an off track for Dominic Brennan as he really pushes now. Lewis Ward having to hold back behind him. Niles Core in there as well. These guys are all backing up almost in these points of the race. Simon's in, so is Dominic, and so is Lewis, so the McLarens have to blink first.
I don't know what that says about the fuel economy of their cars and what it does for the race going forward. Callum Brandt, economical as always, saving the fuel and carrying on in behind Niels Core. But these two can't afford to battle. They have clear track, Brendan. They need to go like stink to try and erase any of the advantage. And up onto the jacks goes Lewis Ward. Is Simon Povey up on the jacks? I don't think he is. I think Simon Povey isn't taking tyres.
It's hard to tell. There's no... Someone's parked a Porsche in the way. Yeah, that's too far away. Oh, he is.
Oh, he was up on the jack.
Look at them all bob down again as Dominic Brennan and Lewis Ward both get going about the same time. Are they still in one another's cars? They are not. Dominic Brennan is out in front. Simon Povey came out right behind another car there. Is that James Holman in front of him? No, it's not. It's Rob Sutherland right behind him. I saw a black car for a second and just flashed through the screen. As
if James Holman can save about, well, 6 minutes worth of fuel, he'll be right as rain. You know, the Porsche is very economical, but I don't know if it's that economical.
No, that's very true, actually. Very true. It was very incredible at Donington and at previous rounds how much that thing saved fuel, but especially with the pace that James could get out of it as well. I mean, even Rob Sharp, you know, Rob gets incredible pace out of the Porsche, but they just somehow eke the fuel out as well. It's nice to see that it's got a strength like that, but on a circuit like this, even if it was a race where he'd started near the front, it would have still been very difficult to get right. This is an interesting battle as well, isn't it? It's all about the Mercedes against the BMW away from these McLarens, isn't it now? And these are the top two in each of the, well, the top drivers in each of those cars inside the top 5 that could maybe send a fight to the wonderful little mid-engine machines. There's a bit of a blink in and out there for Niles Core. That's not going to install all the confidence in the world in Callum Brandt.
Yeah, I mean, battle of precision German engineering, even though Callum Brandt's engineering sounds about as precise as a sledgehammer, just the big meaty V8 rumbling around in behind. But with Callum behind the wheel, it's a very surgical operation of just looking after the car, looking after the race in general, managing the fuel, the tyres. Both of them now are coming in a lap later. The race leader Simon Povey and co, all in their McLarens. Christian Saruta and Guy Edwards will be coming in as well. Dan McCauley's been able to actually stretch the tank of the McLaren a little bit, which is good to see. Opportunities to save fuel later on in the race, of course, with a short pit stop, saving time. There's James Holman into the pits as well.
Yeah, more and more
Simon
cars.
Povey will likely re-inherit the race lead, but the gap is still around about 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, he's done a decent job at staying ahead of Dominic Brennan and Lewis Ward. And to be fair, one of the most important things is that Dominic Brennan is still ahead of Lewis Ward. I think that is very, very key for this race. But look at the gap back to Christopher Smith as well. He was in that sort of secondary fight. Let's see from Lewis Ward here where the rest of the guys come out, because there is Callum Brandt on the right-hand side just getting up to speed. He is going to lose out to Lewis in the long run here as they sprint past him on the left-hand side. Yeah, he has.
A lot.
He's opened up a big, big gap there, and he's right into the slipstream of these guys in front. That's going to help him out a lot. What about behind as well? Side by side was Christopher Smith and Christian Saruta, and Smith in the BMW is going to go through. Saruta's going to have a compromise line up towards Rouge and Radion, and away he goes.
The race is starting to take shape, isn't it? It was Dominic Brennan and Lewis Ward are battling together, and Lewis Ward is going to be trying to take back second place. I think he's just been able to get it done, you know, Chaz, in towards Lecum, and he has secured second place. Crucial moment of the race now to see what the Apex Racing Academy driver can do to try and reel in Simon Povey in the lead of the race. It's not something that Lewis Ward needed to do, but obviously to get the race wins under the belt is going to help his championship up that little bit more to get one over on his main rival.
Yeah, it's certainly a good battle now that Callum Brandt's back in the picture as well. Just seeing what the times were like previously, but obviously Callum came into the pits, so it's not much of a comparison. We'll have to just wait and see what he can manage over the next couple of laps or so.
Look at the time in the pits, actually. Callum Brandt spent about a second or two less stationary compared to those around him, which is what's probably seen him closer into this fight. A little bit of blinking in and out isn't going to help him much either.
He was actually 2 seconds less than Dominic Brennan.
Yeah. Oof, so that's very intriguing. He's back into the picture though, and one thing I've noticed with Niels Kor is that he isn't out of the shot either. He's about 1.5 seconds back, which is plenty of room to close up with the slipstream's assistance. Lewis Ward, he's trying to take as much time out of Simon Povey's lead as he can, but just when you see that gap, it's going to be so difficult and maybe even demoralising for Lewis Ward to know that Simon, if he gets the lap nailed down and he makes one little mistake, that could be race over.
Yeah, it very easily could be. It can suddenly disappear on you, and all problems can occur if you just push it that little bit too hard. You never know really in a race like this either, because there's so many drivers that will push from the get-go and throw everything at a race like this just to make one little mistake in the later stages. But then there's other drivers that will sort of hold back a bit of their pace and let the others think, oh, maybe they're not as quick as me today, and then all of a sudden unleash it, and then boom, they're absolutely off and away. And it's almost like it catches people off guard, isn't it, sometimes, when they hold back. Almost as if they weren't expecting it, but all of us watching certainly knew what the score was.
It was about 1.7 seconds, now 1.6 seconds as they come into Lecum. So the slipstream is certainly working in the favour of Lewis Ward. And through the corners, Simon is able to extend it a little bit more. A lot of yo-yos backwards and forwards. Just so interested on Callum Brandt because he can pull out these amazing little strategies from seemingly nowhere as well. Eyes are on James Holman and his progression up through the field. He sort of stopped at around about 11th place because of the gaps that opened out earlier on. But pace is still very strong there, considering he hasn't had a lot of track time, wasn't able to join in the session to get acclimatised to the track conditions. He's having a very good performance, not just in terms of his pace, but also to not have any mistakes, because we've seen that the Porsche is not the favoured car around here on account of the incidents, on account of the short wheelbase up through Radion when the car gets unsettled. He's done such a good job just to get some points on the board.
Yeah, it's exactly what he needs, isn't it, for his championship? just bigger picture stuff right now by James Holman. I mean, he's only...
Sport.
Yes, absolutely. And he's within 5 seconds of Dan McCauley as well, who's just in front. Dan's having a bit of a lonely race, actually. 4.6 seconds ahead to Johnny Elia, 4.9 seconds back to James Holman. So he's not got all of the action going on at the moment as Dan, unfortunately. But still, championship points again for Apex Racing Academy, supporting his teammate Lewis Ward and doing everything by the book at the minute. Just not able to find himself in a group of guys that are all slipstreaming each other, as we've seen so far during the race. But we do have these little sort of battle packs developing, as once again Christopher Smith and Christian Zaruta are battling. 8 seconds behind them, Guy Edwards and Johnny Elia have now found themselves locking horns. That was a lovely transition. Thank you, iRacing cameras, as they go around Blanchemont into the bus stop chicane. Johnny Elia, don't forget, has disappeared from battling with Dan to then move forward to catch Guy, but I think Guy lost a lot of time in the pit lane as well. He was 3 seconds longer than some of the other guys around him in terms of how stationary he was. But then again, Christian Zaruta, actually no, it was not Guy losing time, it was Christian and Christopher. They were only stationary for less than 20 seconds each.
Oh, yeah, very short stops there that seemed them propelled up the order. Maybe that'll help them out, though, of course. The track position helps out a lot around Spa, because sometimes if you get caught up in traffic, or if you get a little bit too much tunnel vision of battling, you can lose time hand over fist. So maybe these two need to work together at this stage of the race, knowing they've short fueled earlier and will have longer pit stops later. Up ahead, though, Simon Povey is extending his lead. It was around about 1/10.5 quicker than Lewis Ward, and I think as soon as that gap starts to creep above the 2 seconds to definitely around about 2.2, it's going to be so tricky for Lewis Ward to catch up on account of Simon's just raw pace around this track. So qualifying.
Interesting to
just
see.
Looks so at home, doesn't he, as well, Randy? Just see the attitude of the car. Look at it.
Just looks like it's what I don't know when it was. I think BBC F1 did it a long time ago, where they compared. I think it was when Jenson Button won the world title in 2009. Spoilers, by the way. And they compared his driving to Sebastian Vettel. And when they looked at Button, it was literally one input all the way. He got to a point of his steering and he just stayed there, and then he straightened up again out the corner. And Simon's very often like that, whereas they compared it to Vettel, and Vettel's, you know, he's soaring at the wheel and he's notching the steering in and it's going all over the place and there's a lot of correction. Whereas Simon's really smooth with his steering inputs. That's something we've always seen from him. It doesn't ever look like he's fighting the car. It always looks really controlled from his perspective. And this is another drive where he's just got this out-and-out smooth driving ability that gives him the incredible pace. And around a long flowing circuit like this, it's the perfect match, and it's no surprise that he's won here multiple times before in this series. I was going to say, regarding his laps though, his last lap was a 2:28.4 and his best is a 2:28.1, and he's been so close to that lap time and time again, hasn't he?
Consistent and quick. It's a deadly combination for those that try and beat him, and no one can seemingly match him, let alone better him. Again, that's 2/10 of a second quicker by Simon in comparison to Lewis Ward, and soon that gap will just grow further and further and become almost unassailable. But this is the track that Simon is really comfortable with. He won in season 1, won in season 2. It just shows how tricky, when he's comfortable and everything's right in the world, to do better than Simon, because there's a reason why he won season 1 and was so close in season 2, but just on account of missing a few rounds here and there, wasn't really able to keep himself in the fight. And sadly, that's, I think, been the case this season as well. He's missed a round or two, and then obviously had the showing at Donington Park that's sadly thrown out the picture. But it's all about what could have been with Simon if he was, you know, able to attend every single race.
Yeah, that's it. There's so many what might have been moments, isn't there, in these sorts of championships. And with leagues, it is often that you will have a driver that misses a round or two, and it can shake up the order, which is a shame. And as much as Simon and Dan love to campaign to try and get drop rounds in this championship, I'm afraid, guys, it won't happen going forward. They message me almost once a day about it, and I absolutely love the pair of them for it. We have a really good laugh, and honestly, it's just another part of this fantastic community that we've got here in the Sim Racing magazine community and here in the GT4 Challenge. Again, a quick thank you to our sponsors in the championship: Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Blinds to Go, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Mydas Simulations. Thank you to everybody that's watching at the moment. John Barnes saying that was a quick race. Good luck, only John, he says. John Roberts still running at the moment, but outside of the points in 24th place after his big damage earlier on, I'm afraid. But as we have a quick recap of the order, then we all know it's Simon Povey leading. Lewis Ward, this man here, in second place at the moment, just ahead of Dominic Brennan. Then it's Callum Brandt, Niles Corr still in 5th place in the BMW. Christopher Smith next up in 6th place ahead of Christian Saruta. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Guy Edwards and Johnny Elia. And Dan McCauley currently rounding out the top 10. He's still got a few seconds over James Holman, but he's reeling him in bit by bit here, Ed. Just under 25 minutes of this race to go, and still a good pit stop to add into the mix. Things could still all change here.
The time was right. Last lap, James Holman did a 29.09. Dan McCauley did a 29.96. That was nearly 9/10 of a second. James Holman took out a single lap. He is a man on a mission around here. Really rapid. I think the only cars that are faster than him at the present moment in time out on circuit is Simon Povey without slipstream.
It's pretty scary, isn't it?
There's a few other drivers in the 28s, but they all have slipstream. I mean, you see that from James Holman. He's rapid, and you think, oh, what times could he have been doing if he was here from the very beginning of the session, if he qualified well. Is that another 29.09? That's another 29.0.
It is.
James. He's consistently quick.
I saw a 29.0 from Lewis Ward as well, but
yeah,
that's slower than everyone around him by quite a bit, actually. Everyone else was in the 28.5s and 7s.
And it just shows as well, as soon as Simon Povey breaks the slipstream, Lewis Ward struggles to keep up, and it was nearly half a second by Simon quicker than Lewis Ward there. So it's just going to grow and grow, that gap. Simon just needs to bring it home, and Lewis, I think, realises that it'll be a tall order for Simon to properly get back into the championship, so his focus has to shift to his rivals in behind of Dominic Brennan, Callum Brandt and Niels Corr.
Very, very true. As looks like he's going in hot there into Bruchel, but that's the thing. You go in and you square off that corner, don't you? You go in hot, clip the apex, let it run wide, and then get a slingshot out of it, which helps you down to what is always going to be no-name corner. Apparently it's now called Speaker's Corner because there's a commentary box there. It used to also be called Jackie X Ben for a little bit of time as well. This is not Double Gauche, this is Pouon as he goes down the hill. There's a battle still going on, by the way, here, which involves Martin Kenyon. Martin's constantly got drivers around him battling. He's got Carwadine in front and Ralph Mayer behind. These are battling over the final 3 points positions. So they need to be careful here, because even if there's the tiniest little moment, this could all go awry and lose them championship points.
And it could do. It's great to see 3 different arcs all battling together. You've got the BMW up front, the wonderful Aston Martin in the middle, and the Porsche bringing up the rear. The Porsche's got one strength that those 2 cars don't have, and that's the ability to stop on a 5-pence piece. So good on the brakes is that little Porsche. Well, it doesn't necessarily have the greatest top end speed. It accelerates well out of the corners, it turns in nicely and stops better than any other car out there. So that's going to be something that Ralph will have to use to his benefit if he wants to get the better of 2 up ahead.
Lewis Ward still just ahead of Dominic Brennan here for 2nd place, and I think really part and parcel of Dominic being sat there in his mirrors is the fact that Lewis is now going to be thinking about defending here, because Dominic is sort of holding him back, isn't he? He's like he's got the tractor beam on, and the mothership that is Simon Povey is just having this Apex Racing Academy McLaren dragged away from it, while Callum Brandt just sort of watches from the asteroid field. And, well, Niles Corr is, in that BMW, it's like a black hole chasing you down anyway, isn't it? But still, he's not close enough to get slipstream right now. He's about 2nd off these guys, so it'll keep him in touch and help him the tiniest bit, but it's not going to give him an easy overtaking opportunity down the straights, is it?
I mean, this is the bit where I'd be a selfish racing driver. If I was in Simon's position, I'd be telling Dominic to battle with Lewis, to slow them all up and just give him more space out in front, because, as well, Dominic's got the incentive to battle with him. It's not like he's really going to be able to catch up to Simon, because Simon's pace is just so monstrously quick. And if he can get one over on Lewis Ward, it's going to help out both of the Spontex Egan and Sports drivers because of their team's championship fight. I think there will be a point swing in their favour regardless, on the account of Simon winning and Dominic being on the podium. Dan McCauley in 10th, maybe soon to be demoted down to 11th if James Holman can get much closer and start to put a bit of a charge on, which he's certainly doing. Actually, having a look, James Holman is within slipstream range of the McLaren in 10th place. What I think that would be from James. He's going to have plenty of overtake to try and send to Ralph Meyer from the race, because he's up all race on.
Yeah, James Holman doing a great job, isn't he? 15 places gained inside the top 10. If he can just get ahead of that McLaren in front of him, we're into the final third of the race now. Less than 20 minutes to go here at Spa-Francorchamps. And we've also got 5 places gained for Drew Fletcher and Heinz Mayer. These two battling one another for 14th position at the moment. It's McLaren versus Porsche. You can see just how skinny the little Porsche is in comparison to the McLaren. The McLaren isn't a necessarily wide car, but it just makes this Porsche look so scrawny, and I don't know whether that's just down to iRacing's scan of it or not, but it doesn't seem that narrow in the real world. I don't know what it's all about, to be honest, or whether it's an earlier version of the car that they've then developed later on, but I don't know. It's just a very interesting thing to see how tiny and narrow this Porsche is. He's got a great run here, though. He's going to hope it's narrow so he can fit down the right-hand side of Drew Fletcher's McLaren. Side by side as they go up towards Blanchimont. He got a fantastic run. I think Drew just had to get out of the throttle, running a little bit wide on the exit beforehand. Onto the brakes there for Heinz as Dominic Brennan has got back in front of Lewis Ward. It sounds like there was some contact somewhere as well. I think somebody's been off the road and hit something, maybe someone coming into the pits, but this is great dicey stuff between these pair. Not sure if Drew Fletcher would have got a slowdown penalty for his antics on the exit of Blanchimont, but still, great fun entertainment there between these pair. Love a bit of that, and this is the thing. There's always battles going on up and down the order in this championship. We may focus a lot on the front, where the key drivers really are when they're fighting for the big points, but yeah, it's just awesome to watch when it's like this and how close they can be together. What a run around the outside there by Heinz Mayer. Lovely job. He's going to be on the inside for a rouge, giving each other all the room in the world. We're going to stay with this room, because this is fantastic racing. Great entertainment in two very different cars. We're still not quite getting it right down there. James Holman has got past Dan McCauley already. We saw him a moment ago, like 5 lengths back. I don't know how he's done that. We're going to look at Dominic Brennan overtaking Lewis Ward. This is going to be down the Kemmel Straight, or up the Kemmel Straight. Hard on the brakes into Lecombe, and look, Lewis just says, yep, go on then, if you want. He knows he doesn't need to worry about the championship points, doesn't he? Knows he needs to not worry about them at all. He can sit in third and be a happy bunny, as this is what James Holman did to get past Dan McCauley, Ed. Slow down?
It's from a long way back, isn't it? So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. Is it just the closing speed and the slipstream? Is it maybe a slowdown? No real. Is it maybe just a mistake into Lecombe? A little bit wider the apex there. Is that going to have a knock-on effect? Look at how much James Holman is able to close up just through 2 corners on account of that one little mistake.
Yeah, Dan,
and the drive out of the corner down in towards Bruxelles, and actually, yeah, Dan McCauley gets out of the way. Doesn't want any part of that.
Yeah, I think he had a slowdown, and he was just trying to serve it really gently and really elegantly for a long time, and it just happened that he had to.
Look at this!
Suddenly get on it on the exit of Lecombe as Drew Fletcher moving back in front of Heinz Mayer, gets a bit sideways though through Piff Path, through the Fania chicane as it's known, and look at this behind them as well. Philip Hopley, who was rapid in practice earlier on, is now getting right back in the thick of it as well. He's 16th at the moment. He's had a few internet issues over the last couple of rounds, so we've not seen him for the full majority of the race. Christian Zaruta and Christopher Smith, both the next cars to come in, as we've got a McLaren, Porsche and Mercedes battle right now. This is good fun to watch this. Still more and more stuff going on further down the order in this championship. And this is the thing, these guys could sometimes only be separated by like 2 or 3 points. So one position like this could make a difference to their titles.
I've not heard a lot from Callum Brandt on Mills Court. They're still up in the fight for the podium places, but they haven't really done a lot. They've just sort of been happy sitting back and watching all the drama unfold, and part of me's wondering, what are they cooking up? What have they got scheming along in the background to maybe try something in these sort of final rounders of pit stops? Maybe trying to, again, take a shorter stop for the McLarens. They did go a lap longer, so that could be something to factor in. Very twitchy and battling up ahead. They come down towards, they say, Puan. I believe Belgians do call it double gauche. Basically just means double left.
Yeah, well, they can go away, quite frankly. They can just...
Quite polite way of putting it, I think.
Yeah,
I knew
well, it's
you were trying to
broadcastable.
say it. Your broadcastable way of saying it, yeah. And again, Piff Paff, all the French chicane. So many corners around here, so many different names. Like this one being, I think, no one knows which one's called Campus and Stavelo, but the right-hander's Campus, and then the second
I was
right-hander
going to
is
say,
Stavelo.
the right-hander, I know the right-hander's Campus and the right-hander's Stavelo, I know that much.
Which way around they are, but no, I think the first one is Campus, and the last one is Stavelo, but sometimes people say Stavelo 1 and 2.
I often call them a pain in my backside when I'm ever driving around it, because
Yeah.
they are really tricky corners. They don't look like it when you're on the outside, but balancing the throttle through here with the really steep curb you've got on the inside, then trying not to get an off track on the left is so tough in cars like this. So they really are a massive pain. As in comes Simon Povey, speaking of being a massive pain, into the pit lane he goes, nice and quickly. He's going to crawl his way down there as the camera does its thing. Very tasty as he focuses down towards the far end. There's Andy Marston, the boss man, just coming out of the pit lane at the other end, actually. Car 111 for Sim Racing Magazine Team A. He's going to be just out in front of the leaders here, so he's hopefully not going to get in their way. He's just going to pull over to the side. They're going to drive past on the left, make it nice and tidy, and look, that's what it's all about. Slowing down early, being predictable, and not waiting until the braking zone to turn across the car in front. Lewis Ward is in the pit lane as well, which is a detail I missed. And, ooh, goodness me. Hello, sunshine.
He's caught right up to Simon. What's been going on here? Where has this come from?
Oh my goodness me. Look who's in the picture now. Here's James Holman in the scene. James Holman's seeing these guys. He's thinking, oh, this could be a spicy moment for the championship. You would have thought James Holman would back out of this, but then again, he's a Legends racer. They don't back out of anything. He's actually had to back out of it down Eau Rouge and Radillon. But that could have been, if he'd have really committed to that, that could be almost championship changing stuff right there. Wow.
Yeah, it could have been if there certainly would have been championship changing should there have been contact. But thankfully there wasn't. James was very sensible in getting out of it. Now, look at the time in the pits between Lewis Ward and Simon Povey. What was that? 4 seconds?
Yeah.
Shorter stop from Lewis Ward. What did he save the fuel? Is he gonna be able to make it to the end of the race, or is this a bit of a gamble for Lewis to think that maybe it'll be a lot shorter than Simon's calculated? Ooh, I'm not sure about this one, Chaz. It could be close. Simon will not in reserve. Maybe Simon was just a bit more lackadaisical and thought, oh, I've got a gap, I can put more fuel on and be safe. Well, not the case anymore, is it?
No, absolutely not. He's going to have to push and see what he can do in the final stages of the race. It's interesting to see pit stops so early, though. I know that sounds really daft with only about 13 minutes left to go in the race, but usually we see them with like less than 10. So it just shows you how much more fuel they're using around a circuit like this. This is our current race leader, Dominic Brennan, ahead of Callum Brandt and Niles Kaur. These three right together as they go through Blanchimont.
Pushing as well. Look, purple second sector.
Yeah, he has been flying. He's really opened the taps now. Definitely pitting this lap. Niles Kaur closes right in on the pair of them as well. You can bet they're all going to come into the pits. Dominic Brennan's done well, actually, to eke that McLaren out fuel-wise for another lap. As actually, never mind that, Niles Kaur's doing another one. Niles Kaur says, thanks very much. I'll get another lap out of this. Wonder what his pace is going to be like now, because he doesn't have to back out because of the other cars. That could be very intriguing. What we are going to do, though, is for just a moment, we're going to go on board with Callum Brandt, and we're going to see what his stop is like, but it's also going to give us a good view of how the leaders are when they come back out the pits.
Very interesting indeed. I'm just excited to see Niles Kaur really opening up the taps. No clear air, just no cars in front of him. Clear air as far as the eye can see for him. And we know the strength of that BMW. It's so quick in a straight line. Here we go. Simon Povey, Lewis Ward. I think Callum Brandt's just going to slot up behind them, but I think it's still within the fight, isn't he?
Absolutely. There's his teammate James Holman as well. Now he could help him in all of this. That could be an interesting dynamic. If James Holman's got the outright pace here to drag Callum Brandt up to these pair, he could throw him into the mix. Dan McCauley's behind all this as well. He's not done his second pit stop yet, I don't think. He is not. So Holman and McCauley not pitting a second time. Guy Edwards hasn't pitted either. Neither is Rob Sutherland, Heinz Mayer and Paul Goffin. So there's still a lot to be shaken up in the field with these secondary pit stops, but this is the battle we need to see. Simon Povey and Lewis Ward, the two drivers that were up there fighting with Callum Brandt for the championship in Season 2, and now we've got these three drivers near each other on the circuit once again. It's wonderful. Just watching now the lap times, and That's going to be the key factor for this next bit, because the drivers now doing their in-laps are really hot on it as they come into the pit lane to try and put whatever they can on the board. Niles Corr is going to be coming into the pits not too long from now. He goes round Stavelot or Campus, whichever one it is, up towards Blanchimont again. Yeah, it's a right-hander at some point. I don't know what he's got on the back of that car. I think he's painted something on it.
I think
It's a picture of somebody.
it's a little. I'll try and have a look now. We might get a good view of it coming through this final chicane. I think it's a little character from. It's a little Shrek character, I think.
Ah, who made these
come
cameras? God's sake, Chaz. Oh, I don't even know if we're going to see it here either. I do not have a clue what that is.
I have not a clue.
Hopefully, it might be for the best.
Hopefully it's broadcastable.
Yeah, I was going to say
If
it's probably not.
Let's not get a zoom in on it just in case.
So with less than 10 minutes to go, Niles Corr into the pits. Guy Edwards will surely be in the pits as well, but he was 20 seconds off Niles, so he's definitely not going to be in this fight. And now Simon Povey will round the final corner and retake the lead of this race. Niles Corr is going to come back out the pits any moment now. We'll keep an eye on when he gets moving, and we'll see roughly where he gets going. The BMW sounded very nervous on the throttle there. What's he going to be able to do here? Well, that's looking very good for Niles Corr. Wow.
Wow.
Wow, Niles Corr, what a lead! That's incredible! 10.8 seconds for the bit. I didn't see that coming. That's absolutely blindsided me. What on
This
earth?
is going to be incredible. The gap's going to come down to a second, but I'll tell you what, he's in the perfect position to try and keep Simon at bay, because the straight line speed of that BMW, well, it does punch a big hole in the air. It topped out at such a higher speed, and I think if Simon's going to have to try and take him, Niels is going to put up a fight, because this is the first time, I think, after all of the pit stops have been said and done, that Niels Corr has found himself in the lead of the race. All the other times he's led for most of the race and then lost it after the final round of pit stops, just too far back to really fight. This time, the tables have turned. He's been in behind, he's been saving the fuel all race long. This was the thing that we said Niels Corr needed to get done to secure his first race victory of the season's first race victory ever in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. What storyline it would be if he was to do it here at Spa, with plenty of rounds to go to keep building on his performances this season. But he's going to have to bet Simon Povey, a driver that's won every single race in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge at this particular circuit. Deary me, Chaz, it's going to be enthralling these final 7.5 minutes. I can't wait. I'm loving it.
It's going to be an absolute belter, isn't it, towards the end of this race now. 0.7 of a second between Niles Corr and Simon Povey. And they head up towards Blanchimont once again. Lewis Ward is in the box seat here because he's got two cars in front of him that could potentially battle. He just needs to keep an eye on that very angry-looking Mercedes behind him, Callum Brandt. But what an amazing mix we've got of these four drivers at the very front of the order. It's just four of the greatest that we've ever had in this championship, and all with their own different methods. You know, Simon, out and out, the fastest guy we've had in the series. No disrespect to anybody else. Simon is blisteringly fast in pace. Lewis Ward, so calm and composed, so good at just scoring the points when he needs to. Niles Corr, the absolute banshee that he is in that BMW, flying the flag for that incredible car. And again, awesome strategies. But when you talk awesome strategies, you talk Callum Brandt and RD Simsport. Each of these drivers have got so many specialities, but some of them shine through so strong. There's a lot to look at here in these final moments of the race. 6.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, the gap's starting to emerge a little bit between Lewis Ward and Callum Brandt. I think Callum might just be having to manage the race a little bit more. Maybe didn't take as much fuel on board as he was planning, or maybe just the car's head opening the taps out so much. Or having to go to the inside to defend from Simon Povey, who's going for the lead of the race. They're going to be side by side into the braking zone at Les Combes. And this time we're going to go all the way around the outside. He's going to have the inside of the next corner. He's got it done into the lead of the race. That's the Simon Povey that is so difficult to race with and beat, because he gets it done so inch perfect. And now, all of a sudden, Niels Corr is going to be trying to find any way through. Maybe if he's close coming out of Stavelot, he could try a run through into Blanchimont. But Simon's so good. He's got all of the grip in the car as well. He's been able to manage it race long out in front, not worry about any air wash. Been able to take the corners as he pleases, look after the tyres as much as he wants. And this is where he can reap the rewards and try now to bring it home in the final 5 minutes.
James Holman's moved up into the top 10 as well, actually, away from all of that. He's just behind Johnny Elia now, half a second behind him. Well, it's going to be a lot less than that now. I can tell you that for free, as Guy Edwards is in the car up the road. Another RD Simsport stablemate of James's. Look at that, just sneaks down the inside, slides the little Porsche down the inside into Pouon. And he's going to move on into the next place unless Johnny Elia fights back, and knowing Johnny, he's definitely going to give it a go. He's going to push hard here in the Mercedes. He's going to be a little bit annoyed with himself for that little mistake, but still he's 1 place ahead of where he started in the race. And you know what we always say about that sort of thing, Ed?
Do we say?
We say
I want you to say it.
if you finish ahead of or where you started in the race, it's not a bad day at the office.
Not a bad day at the office at all, no. But now that you said that, maybe it won't material, James. There's still plenty of time to go in the race. He's pushing very hard, and I think now he just needs to bring it home. Obviously, you can see one more position to take. Guy Edwards for the end of the race. Now, though, Nils Court is going to need a good run out of La Source if he's to have any chance of keeping up and trying to overtake Simon Povey. Tell you what, not a bad run at all.
Oh.
There's a bit of a blink in and out there as we go on board with Callum Brandt, whose internet isn't been the most stable all weekend long.
One thing I'm interested in here, Ed, is the fact that we've only got this lap and one more to go. I'm not sure the guys will know that, whether they're going to be doing the maths live or not. And look, Lewis Ward, it's not desperate, but he's just saying, look, I have to get in front of you. I have to get on with this. I don't want to sit behind that absolute housing block with Chicane Online Racing written on it. I need to get on with this. He's seen Simon's move. He wants to try and replicate it, but he's got in hot into Lecom. But because of the compromise Niles Core had to make to not go in deep himself, he's also lost a little bit of time. I think Simon Povey went in a bit hot as well, though, because he's actually lost time to the pair of them through there. The gap went from about 9/10 to about 7.5. So it's not gone well for all of them there, other than Callum Brandt, because he's suddenly back in the picture. 0.2 of a second, half a car length off the back of Lewis Ward. This is amazing, amazing racing and great nail-biting stuff towards the end of the race once more. 3 manufacturers fighting for second, third and fourth while Simon Povey leads it in the McLaren. 3 minutes to go here at Spa. One more lap after this one.
Oh, dearie me. Everything to play for. And all the while they're battling. Brennan's actually been able to close up to this. He was about 6 seconds back. He's now 4 seconds back, just on account of battling. I mean, commiserations to him. He's been racing so hard up in front in second place for a lot of the race, but just wasn't able to manage the fuel as much as those that were slipstreaming in behind him. And sadly, the early race pace has sadly been in the backside, unfortunately. Still good points on the board for Spondex CDM Esports Scourers. They will be taking a chunk out of Apex Racing Academy in the Teams Championship, which will be something to watch later on in the season. Simon Povey's now got that gap to over a second, so he is looking to try and beat home and dry. And I think Lewis Ward is realising that there's no real chance for him to get back up into the lead of the race, so it's going to be just all-out attack on Nils Court. And here we go. Final lap is about to get started very shortly, and already in towards the final chicane. Lewis wants to look around the outside to then get the inside into the next corner. Perfectly poised position and nailed overtake there by Lewis Ward. But now he's in second place, and it's going to be in for a bit of strife and pain with all of the slipstream that will be giving to those in behind.
Look how close this is as well into La Source. Absolute traffic jam at turn 1. Simon Povey now 1.6 seconds clear, and Lewis Ward already trying to get out of the slipstreaming position here in front of Niles Core in that big old BMW. He's gained 2 places from where he started as Niles. He's having a really, really good run, and this has been another great race by the German. Certainly flying the flag well at the moment. Let's see what Callum Brandt can do, because we've not seen him pushing. He's been sitting behind, waiting for his opportunity. This is going to be the time when Callum goes for it. He's going to nail that pedal to the floor, flat to the mat, as my mate says. But it's just not enough, is it? I think he's maybe going to wait till Blanchimont, you know. Maybe I'm contradicting myself a little bit in thinking that he was going to go for it down the Kemmel Straight. But I think if he caused a fight there, they would definitely lose Lewis Ward. If they could try and stick with him until later in the lap and then try the move at Blanchimont, that's going to be the key moment. Although, never mind, stuff that. Bruchet, maybe? No, maybe not. This is certainly a mind-blowing race by these guys. There's just so many mental games being thrown this way and that way, isn't there?
Yeah, I think something that we've seen in that BMW is that it's got so much room in 6th gear. So when the slipstreamers, Callum Brandt's using his health tracks to the best of his ability. He's been saving them up for this precise moment where he's cashing them in now to try and catch up to Millscore and Lewis Ward to get on to the podium. Will it be 2nd? Will it be 3rd? Or will it sadly be settling for 4th? Callum Brandt, who's been chasing down Millscore in this final lap, just trying to put his car in perfect position to frustrate and hold off Callum as much as he can do, while also trying not to lose sight of this one up the road. But what a race it's been for Simon Povey. A few scary moments here and there, especially in that final stint where it was almost turned on its head and it was going a bit pear-shaped, but he was able to regain it. And then as soon as he got into the lead, there was little doubt that he was able to bring it home.
It's very interesting for the championship as well, because Lewis Ward obviously is going to be gaining points on everybody except Simon here, so it's actually going to be helping his championship more than anything, because Simon's taking points away from those around him. Don't think there's going to be a big move down the final corner, is there? Callum Brandt does have a look, but at the very front of the field to take a victory in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, it's Simon Povey, his first win of the season here at Spa-Francorchamps. Fantastic drive, he did absolutely everything right. Lewis Ward continues an amazing championship charge, and behind him Niles Core with his 3rd place finish. That's his first 3rd place finish of the season, but it's also his 3rd podium finish. Dominic Brennan okay. Next up, Christian Saruta finishes in 6th place ahead of Christopher Smith, and a massive hats off to James Holman as no contact behind between Guy Edwards and Johnny Elia. But James Holman, what a drive that is in the Porsche. Started 27th on the grid at the back and finished in 8th place. That's a remarkable effort, that. With barely any practice, arriving last minute. Boy, you can be pleased with that one.
Yeah, definitely. Good points as well for RD Team Sport, 4th and 8th. Considering Apex Race Academy were 2nd and 11th. That does lessen the blow a little bit. And in fact, actually, I think RD Sim Sport and Apex Race Academy will be fairly close on points scored from this evening, so the team's championship will continue to be as close as ever. But now we've still got cars out on circuit. One last little battle to bring you, and it's between Ralph Meyer and Martin Kenyon. So we have Mark Johnson and Rob Sutherland coming over the line. 2 Aston Martins, 12th and 13th. Heinz Meyer actually quite a few positions ahead of Ralph. Is either for the first time in quite a while, actually, that they've been separated by as many positions. Paul Goffin and Drew Fletcher, Sim Racing Magazine Team B and Team A over the line in 15th and 16th. Now here we go in towards the final chicane, all the way around the outside. Can the Aston Martin get it done? They touch wheels and doors, and is there a gap up the inside? No, isn't. The door gets slammed shut in his face as Ralph Meyer powers out of the final corner, brings it over the line and is able to retain 18th place. Martin Kenyon sadly has to settle for 19th place. Kim Such, I think, out on the road. I think he's already actually crossed the line. He's in 20th place. Ross Racing Green.
He's not actually. Sorry, Kim Such
is
has not. No, we'll get him. We'll
get him.
Yeah, we'll give him. We'll give him the airtime. Kim Such, everybody. We'll even put his name and his multi-car team settings up on there. Orris Racing Green, Kim Such. He's going to get the final championship point of the race as well. So getting the job done here for Orris Racing Green and helping them in their team's championship as well. Very well done to Kim. Another championship point to add to the list. Well,
they all add up, don't they?
They do. They absolutely do. I've never scored any, so I wouldn't know, but still, they certainly do add up. Oh, even John Roberts as well. John carried on after his earlier incident. An incident on the first lap, just missing out on championship points. But again, great determination, isn't it, to continue on and finish the race. It's so easy to quit, but great stuff by John. Good determination, that.
Yeah, definitely. There was scope for him to maybe sneak a point in there should any other cars have strife earlier on in the race, but credit to him, he still brought it across the line, even if it was outside the points. But, well, what a race that was. So over the number 3. This is also the same number of victories he's had around this circuit.
Indeed, he's absolutely nailed it tonight. And well done indeed to Simon Povey, who takes the race victory in round 7 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. That's his first win of the campaign as well. His 4th podium position. 4th podium finish, I should say. Lewis Ward in second place continues on an amazing charge. That's 2 second places in a row now, with Niles Core behind him in third place. Niles hasn't been on the podium since round 5, but he's consistently scored points every single round. Callum Brandt finishes in 4th, and then Dominic Brennan completes the top 5, only 5.7 seconds separating a lot of them. Then we had Christian Zaruta in 6th place ahead of Christopher Smith for RD Simsport 2, James Holman and Guy Edwards, with Johnny Elia rounding out the top 10. Dan McCauley finishes in 11th ahead of Mark Johnson, with Rob Sutherland in 13th, Heinz Mayer next up, and Drew Fletcher in 15th place, Paul Goff in 16th, Oliver Cowdean and Ralph Mayer in 17th and 18th. Behind them was Martin Kenyon in 19th, with Kim Such, as we saw there, finishing the points scorers. John Roberts next up, and the cars that were 1 lap down or more were Rob Sharp, Andy Marston or Philip Hopley. And then we had Andrew Shepherd and John Barnes, with Ben Gregory not taking the start due to an internet disconnection before qualifying. He wasn't able to come back in, unfortunately. So, that time of the night, where we whack the slow-mo on, see who wants to have a chat with us, and the driver that we've got to drag in, if I can drag him in, because for some reason it won't let me here on Discord, which is very, very strange. There we go. Now. Yes, we do have Niles Core with us in the... What's this place called? The commentary box. Niles, welcome to the comms box, my friend. My brain isn't with it today, but yours clearly was. That looked like a very solid race from you. Well done.
Yeah, hello guys. Thanks very much. I didn't really expect that result, to be honest, but I'm obviously quite happy now.
It looked very tough because it's such a long lap here as well. There's a lot to think about every single circulation, isn't there? I was mentioning it at the top of the broadcast that it's not a short circuit where you can just churn out laps time and time again. It's a real mental game circuit, isn't it, Spa?
Yeah, it's definitely quite a long track, and obviously also a bit tricky with the track limits. But I'm always enjoying it very much, especially also in this car. It's very nice to drive. Yeah, the only problem I had in the end there, I don't know if you might have seen it, I already mentioned it earlier in the season. The car doesn't really have acceleration out of the corners, so defending is really hard. Even though I have a higher top speed, but when they already passed me at the start of the straight, that's not helping much anymore.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the curses and the blessings of having all the different cars in the championship, isn't it? I suppose, with the wonders that are GT4 machines. What was it like with Callum with you all the way as well? Because you and Callum sort of sat back a lot and watched the other guys having that fight for the top 3 positions. Was that all strategic, or was it just a case of hoping not to get bogged down?
I'm gonna be very honest here, I had to push the whole race to not lose these guys. I couldn't allow myself any mistake or I would have lost them, definitely.
Well, luckily you did not, and it was a solid result for your championship. 3 very interesting circuits to follow though: Hockenheimring, Red Bull Ring and Imola. They can all be really, really difficult. How do you think you're going to get on in the BMW?
Yeah, I'm honestly not quite sure. I haven't really driven this car on these tracks much, so I will see when we get there, I guess.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Niles. We were very complimentary of how well you fly the flag for the BMW in this race, so thank you for what you do for the car. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before you go?
As always, I would just like to shout out my team and also you guys for putting up this leak and the broadcast. Always nice to watch.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to speak to you, Niles. Very well done, and we will see you in a week's time. Have a good one.
Yeah.
And it's going to be his home race as well, actually, Ed, at the Hockenheimring as well. So maybe a little bit of home advantage there for Niles. What do you reckon?
Yeah, potentially. Like you say, we saw a bit of home advantage come the way of James Holman at Donington Park just a round ago. So maybe we'll see it this time for Niles Core, and he'll be the second newcomer this season to snag a race victory, and he's been close so many times. It's surely a matter of when and not if.
Absolutely, and I think another driver where it's probably a case of when, not if. Just tonight wasn't that when, is Christopher Smith. Chris, welcome to the commentary box again, my friend. Good to speak to you. It's been quite a while. How was that?
Hey.
Simple question.
How was that? It was fun, yeah. Well done to Christian Saruta. And he hit me at the post on the penultimate lap. And he definitely had the pace, but I don't think he just quite had the legs in that Mercedes to get past me on the Kemmel straight, but was much quicker through the twisty bits. Like, Yeah, the bus stop chicane. It was pretty painful seeing that car catching me so fast. But yeah, good race, thank you, and well done to James Holman starting from the back of the grid. He got himself all G'd up on the way home from the airport apparently because he was driving like a lunatic trying to get here on time. He just made it
under the speed limit, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah,
very safe, very safe. Yeah, and yeah, it's good drive for him and the rest of the team. We all got some points, I think. So nice outing.
Well, it certainly looked difficult because, as I said to Niles a moment ago, Spa is such a unique circuit on this calendar because it's so much longer than all the others. And because you don't have as many laps around here, it's harder to sort of churn out a repetitive lap, isn't it? Because there's so many more places for it to go right or wrong.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. A bit like Nürburgring or something. It's almost you versus the track sometimes, but
yeah,
you got somebody breathing down your neck, it makes it even more tricky.
Absolutely does. And I mean, the next one's tricky as well. We go to the Hockenheim Ring, which was a scene of a very exciting race last season. What do you make of going there?
Yeah, indifferent. Yeah, we'll see. It's another tricky one for the BMW, I think. But I don't know, they all are a bit tricky, but the BOP isn't too bad despite what people say. But yeah, not driven at Hockenheim in a long time, so looking forward to it. Should be good to get back.
So are we, Chris. We certainly look forward to seeing how you and your wonderful teammates get on as well. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before you go, my friend?
Thanks to you guys, and thanks to all the competitors in the championship. Thanks to Christian Saruta for keeping it clean and having a good race with him. And yeah, thanks to everybody watching, and big love to you guys.
Thanks very much, Chris. Always a pleasure to
All right.
speak to you, my friend. Well done on the points, and we'll see you at
Thanks.
Hockenheim.
See you later.
He's definitely got a very good voice for radio, hasn't he, Ed? That was smooth and clear. I like that.
Smooth,
Yeah,
buttery.
absolutely.
Love that.
I sort of melted back into my chair a little bit then, admittedly. Still, a fantastic race.
Careful.
A real storm over race in the later stages, especially there. And there was a lot of strategy at play here at Spa. But Simon Povey back on the top step again. The first time this season. God, it feels like forever, doesn't it? But I thought he'd won like 3 races already this season.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but if there was any round that he was going to win, it was going to be the one at Spa. He's so dominant around this circuit. And from the moment that he put that time in practice, I could just tell what was going to happen. There's no way you can beat him around these sorts of tracks when he's on song. Sometimes you can out-strategy other drivers, but with Simon, even if you try and do that, like we saw the likes of Lewis Wood and Niels Kor, just getting close to him, sometimes even getting ahead of him after that last round of pit stops. His just raw pace was so much that they couldn't even fight with him afterwards. It's ridiculous. And thankfully, everyone now knows my pain of what it was like in season 1, trying to race against that absolute demon. He's just too quick.
Yeah,
He gives just his particular car about 50 kilos worth of ballast.
Well, it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, like you said before, he's won every time we've come to Spa in this championship. He's certainly shown that he's got the pace around a place like this, and he has made it work time and time again. Well, Lewis Ward, though, takes another step towards the championship here after racing at Spa, and it's going to be very intriguing to see how that continues as we head to the Hockenheim Ring in a week's time. Thanks, as always, to the championship sponsors, the wonderful people at Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Blinds to Go, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Mydas Simulations, and our awesome viewers as well. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thank you to the amazing drivers that take part in all these races for keeping it clean and keeping Ed and I very well entertained. And, of course, to my wonderful co-commentator, Ed May. I've been Chaz Draycott. This has been the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge on Chaz Draycott Media, and we'll see you in a week's time. Have a good one. Four French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. The 3 wide again. Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across. They're both in front of Milan and
But
Pouget.
before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy. You know, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake.
Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, he's been moved and a drift to go out. All the way from back there. Go on board with Ben Gregory now. I love it. 16.5 minutes gone. Senna race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.